understanding that we have to create, capture, nurture demand. The essence behind all of that is consumption of content and awareness and brand messaging and all of that other fun stuff, right? Part of what is going to make that big difference is creating content that people consume that resonates with who they are.
You are listening to Amplify Your Success podcast, episode 476. And today, let's discover how to scale your business beyond your personal capacity. You ready for this? Let's get started. Welcome to the Amplify Your Success podcast. Get ready to ramp up your revenue, amplify your impact, and make your mark in the world. This is the show for experts, thought leaders, and service professionals who want to shatter their limits and achieve that next level. You're going to find out from other experts and influencers how they made it. Now, let's get amplified. Hey there, inspired entrepreneurs and business leaders. It is your host, Melanie Benson, authority amplifier and founder of the Rising Tide Collective. And today I've got a guest joining us, and this is such a fascinating conversation. We deep dived into a lot of what's happening in our industry right now with the focus on how to scale your business beyond your personal capacity. And we talked about how AI is playing out in the coaching, consulting, and services industries. It's a really, really interesting conversation. But it always comes back for me to what we do to position the value of our programs. Look, we are not meant to be everything to everybody. We are not meant to sell our programs and our services, even as valuable as they are, to everyone who reaches out and asks to work with us. And literally, our marketing is not meant to be resonant and attract everyone. It's meant to be a definer. And when you learn how to be the unignorable expert who positions what you do and showcases how you solve the problems for the right people, that's when things really start to take off. And I have a framework I have been teaching for many, many years. And it seems like every time we go through big, crazy changes in the buying practices and industry norms, we always come back to the basics. Do you know the 7 key factors that make you the unignorable expert that the right people choose and the opportunities come to? And if you're not seeing that in your business right now, chances are you don't have this dialed in, and that's okay, but I'm here to help. So let me give you my 7-step framework to stop being the best kept secret and start being unignorable at melaniebenson.com framework. I encourage you to go download it, review it, score yourself, and then make a decision what's the 1 to 2 things you're going to focus on for the next 90 days. And hey, I'd love to hear about it. Shoot me a quick message wherever you're listening to this and tell me, what will you focus on in the next 90 days? All right, now let's dive into today's episode. Welcome back, Amplifiers. I'm excited to introduce our guest today. We're talking about scaling your business beyond your personal capacity. And having talked to so many different business owners this year about what's in the way, this is exactly what you need to hear. Now, let me introduce you to my guest, Charles Gaudet. Charles is the architect of the Predictable Profits Operating System, a proprietary methodology that's helped hundreds of 7- and 8-figure businesses escape the feast or famine cycle and create predictable revenue streams. Now, Charles, I'm very excited to bring you onto the show today. You and I've had some conversations recently on your show, and we're going to deep dive today on your system. Welcome to the show.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Well, we are bringing this conversation to the community as we're entering a new year. And I want to talk about something that's been emerging over the last 12 to 24 months that I think is really playing out in an interesting way in both of our industries, and that's AI. And everybody's got a theory of AI. Everybody thinks they know where it's going. I'd like to see, from your point of view, how do you see AI affecting the coaches, the consultants, the thought leadership businesses that are maybe relying a lot on content to get seen in the marketplace?
Well, It's a really great question, and one that we've been talking about quite a lot with our clients right now. The thing is every single one of the people listening here, if they have a business, they've been disrupted by AI already. And more so, they've been disrupted in AI in ways that they probably don't even know that they've been disrupted by AI. And what's going on is I hear from many 6, 7, and 8 figure entrepreneurs, I hear them say things like, for whatever reason, our traffic has gone down. They might say, blame politically, this is a Trump issue. They might say this is an economic issue. They might say there's something going on. But this is just guesses. They don't really know what's happening. But the reality is if you look at your traffic on your website, what you'll notice between January of 2025 and where we are today, the traffic has gone down by as much as 60%. Organic traffic gone down by as much as 60%. Why? That's the first stage of disruption in AI. Google has preferenced AI overviews, so it's trying to provide answers rather than direct people specifically to their website. Now you might think, okay, interesting, you'll go to your organic traffic. I encourage you to do that and see that. But that's just a preview of what's to happen in the future. In fact, more and more users are using these AI forward search engines. You've got Perplexity, which is one of the 800-pound gorillas for the AI-based search engines right now. What I'm told through a very good source is that Google is planned on defaulting to AI mode by the end of this year. Their button is already changed on google.com to AI mode to click that. But right now it's not defaulting to AI mode, but it's supposedly going to default to AI mode. For those of you who are heavy ChatGPT users, you may already be using Atlas, which is available for the Mac users. Atlas is basically Google's competitor. It's their own browser, so you can do all your searching and everything through Atlas. So here's the thing. The AI is disrupting the buyer's journey in a major, major way. We used to go to Google and type in a search and be given a bunch of different pages. And you would take people to your website and people would make decisions based on what they see on the website. But that's changing, and it's changing rapidly, and we're going to see that influence massively happening in 2026. So people are going to go to these AI forward search engines and they're going to type something in, and then it's going to end up spilling some content, AI derived content in answers. So for example, I turned around and I brought a client through the future, and I was able to take the client and show them the future of what the search looks like. And I said, give me an example of what you believe somebody's going to be typing into the search engine. And we typed it in, and what ended up happening was AIs turned around and they said, based on everything that I know about you, I would actually recommend, rather than investing in this service, you could do it on your own. I could provide you with the SOP, and I would draft this and that, make it happen. This person nearly fell out of his chair. He couldn't believe it. He said, I've always thought my competition was my other competitors. I didn't realize I was competing against AI. Knowing this, we can create a strategy to be able to change that and make it happen. But then just before this, I brought somebody else in and I took him into the future and I showed him what was going on. And actually, AI was marketing him better than he could market himself. It was saying things so much better for him. So what's the difference between one or the other? It really comes down to, what does your expert profile look like? And when I say expert profile, would you like me to go into it, Melanie?
Yeah, because I have my own imagination of what that might be, but I'm curious how you define that.
Sure. Well, it's actually not how I define it, but as much as what the AI engines define. And specifically, when I say that, I know that ChatGPT is doing this, and I know that Gemini does this as well. So what it does is it says, okay, I'm going to build an expert profile on Melanie. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to start, up first, I'm going to see, what is she the expert in? So it may go to your website, and it'll say, okay, so who are you? And you could say I'm an expert at this and that, and this is what I say about my website. Boom. So this is what I say I'm an expert. So go, okay, let's turn around and let's see if that is for real. They're going to go to LinkedIn, and they actually feed what you put in LinkedIn in your posts as part of that expert profile. They feed that in. This isn't theory, that is actually fact. They go to Instagram, they feed that in. They will go to podcasts and transcripts and feed that in. They will go to YouTube. They will feed that in. Quora, Reddit, as much as I have mixed feelings on Reddit, but Reddit, they'll look at reviews, not the reviews on your website. They'll look at the reviews that are on third party, like Google reviews, Trustpilot, and so forth. They'll look at case studies because those are specific, and you can put those case studies in your website, put the case studies in there. Articles that you write or articles that are hosted elsewhere. Press that you're generating, earned press, and it'll feed that in. And it will turn around, it'll create this expert profile, and it's going to say, are there particular topic clusters that you talk about frequently, over and over and over again? Because if you talk about it frequently, and there's density in the messages that you provide, then that says, okay, she must be an expert around these things. And so it creates this expert sort of cluster. And that's how, and then it does that to all your competitors. It says, okay, so based on what we believe is Melanie's expert, now we're going to look at all the other competitors. And we're going to see who's actually the top expert. But here's the thing that a lot of people don't realize, is that AI is fighting for relevance. So you're the authority amplifier, right? Let's say somebody wants to come in and they want to find, that authority amplifier. And how would you actually define yourself in just a simple way? So would you say you're a branding expert? How would you define yourself in a simple way?
Yeah, no, I help experts get more visibility and monetize that visibility with a proven profit path for their business.
Okay. So, and if I was going to look for you and type you inside of Google, what would I type in?
You would probably look for visibility strategist or maybe business branding, messaging strategist, maybe expert positioning, something like that.
Okay. So let's look at, how can I help somebody build my expert positioning? And I put that in there. And let's say AI turns around and they say, I recommend Joe Nobody. And I'm like, okay. So I take Joe Nobody and I hire Joe Nobody and I get a really bad experience. So then what happens is I go, you know what? I got a bad experience last time I took AI's advice, so I'm not going to use it anymore. That's really bad for AI survival. AI needs relevance to survive. So they're fighting for survival. So it creates these really robust AI profiles so it can go back and say, hey, Charlie, based on everything that I know about you, I think Melanie is going to be the best fit. So when I work with Melanie and I get a great experience, then I can say, wow, that was awesome. I'm going to trust AI more. And so it's really, really, really careful at what it does in building this expert profile. But now let's say I turn around and let's think about it from like a medical front, right? If I say I have an issue with my heart, but I look at it and there's this general practitioner that has a super awesome expert profile, but then there's somebody else who's a heart doctor. AI is going to turn around and they're going to go, well, this general practitioner has got really great expert profile, but we do know those who specialize in niche generally have a stronger expert type of profile. We think they know better. So we're actually going to recommend this cardiologist over here rather than the GP. So it turns around and it recommends that cardiologist. So what we're seeing now, and this is going to be a much bigger issue in 2026, is we're going to see people are going to be forced to be specific and niche. We're going to see people are going to be forced to really focus in on core key topic clusters, and they're going to be having to put out content and case studies and testimonials. Anybody who's average and they're average at what they do and whatnot, they're going to disappear. The experts are going to take an outsized share of the marketplace. Content is ultimately going to be mandatory, as I have here. It's consumption that drives conversion, right? Consumption drives conversion. the more content someone consumes that falls within the topic clusters, the more those people are going to end up winning.
Yeah, I mean, I think we are just seeing the emergence of what is going to change in the next 2 to 5 years with AI. I think we're all just starting to get this awareness like, okay, it's not going anywhere. It's actually a tool, but this tool is so impactful to how people are making decisions in the buying process. I've watched how people find me through a ChatGPT search, and I'm blown away at what they find and how I had to fine tune some of it to really lean into what I wanted to be known for, not just what chat was uh, generating on its own. So this is really powerful. And I'm wondering, you know, with profit being something that so many business owners need to focus on, and like, let's just say what we need to say here, like 2025 was hard on a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think if we look at AI, we look at, what's going to be necessary to not just grow a business, but to be recognized for the expertise that we are here to sell? What do we need to be focusing on right now so that we're staying ahead of the curve?
Awesome. Great question. People often will tell me, well, I do marketing. But the reality is you can't do marketing. Nobody can do marketing. I had the CEO of a $500 million company look at me and go, wait, what? And I'm like, you can't do marketing. And he says, and what am I doing? I'm like, marketing is a function. It's a function of how you create, capture, and then nurture that demand. So when you look at it and understand the function of marketing, for him, he realized 2/3 of his marketing efforts were operating in the dark, right? And so for all your listeners here, understanding that we have to create, capture, nurture demand, the essence behind all of that is consumption of content and awareness and brand messaging and all that other fun stuff, right? So part of what is going to make that big difference is creating content that people consume that resonates with who they are. Now, one thing that's going to be critically important is that people understand their super consumer. That super consumer is much different than an ICP. An ICP, or otherwise known as ideal client profile, is, that's what they teach in business school and whatnot. You need an ideal client profile, but an ideal client profile is theoretical. It's what we want to have, what we believe is our best client. Where for your listeners that have an established business, that have closed deals, that have data to say this is our best client that is producing the most amount of revenue, they refer the most people, they stay with us the longest, the least amount of headaches, the blah, blah, blah. You're going to find that it's about 10 to 15% of your client base represents like your best, your absolute best. So everything, your brand, your website messaging, your LinkedIn, your content needs to be written to those people. And you're going to want to help by you want to be able to be helpful and provide relevant content that is specific to you. And then there's a whole bunch of other ways, the retargeting to stay top of mind and so forth. But here's also why this is really important, Melanie, and I don't think a lot of people understand this, because most companies will build their business from word of mouth and referrals. And when we start thinking strategically and put ourselves in the buyer's journey, we understand how things change a little bit. Our buyers have become researchers. In 2019, the average prospect looked at 17 different sources of information before making a buying decision. In 2021, that went up to 27. Right now, it's estimated around 36. But by the year 2030, I've been talking about this for a while, but by the year 2030, it's estimated that 100% of all buying decisions will happen with a rep-free sales experience, meaning by the time they get on the phone with you, they would have already decided they want to do business with you. How will somebody draw that conclusion without getting on the phone with someone? It's going to be through messaging, through content, and so forth. So what are the ways that you're empowering your buyers by giving them all the information that they need to know they're making a smart decision? And what are the ways that you're inadvertently disempowering buyers by not giving them that information, which means that if you're not the one doing it, they're going to have to go to a competitor to get that information for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those of you that have a podcast or some type of online show, I can tell you a lot of your buyers are turning to the nurturing sequence of your
Yeah,
content via the audio and video because, look, anybody can generate written content now, and it may or may not really bring your authenticity through. It may or may
you're
not
right.
give them a great vibe on who you are, but your audio, your video, that's giving people a whole nother level of connection with you and recognizing whether you're a fit for them in your vibe, your values, your demeanor, all of it. So I don't know, how do you see your podcast fitting into that content equation?
Well, one of the things that Google determined is that it takes the average person 7 hours they have to consume about 7 hours of content before they make a buying decision. Google determined that. And we found in our research that the sweet spot is between 7 and 7.5 hours, right? That's about roughly the sweet spot. So then, how am I going to get people to consume it? Can I get 7 hours of content on LinkedIn? Well, over a long period of time, will they do that? Can I do it on articles in my blog? Sure, that can happen. YouTube? Absolutely. Instagram? Yes. That's a lot of content on Instagram, but yes, it can happen. Podcasts? Well, there's an easy chunk of maybe 30 minutes all the way to an hour, or if you're Joe Rogan, 3 hours, right?
Yeah.
Um, but what you're doing, and then if you say, well, if consumption drives conversion, why don't you provide many opportunities of consumption? Why don't you add a podcast and do LinkedIn and do Instagram and do articles? But your listeners, they're different than most people. Your listeners are resourceful. Your listeners understand, because many of them are already experts and authors and all this other stuff. They know that they don't have to just sit there and create unique pieces of content across all those places. They can leverage, for example, a podcast and turn that podcast into Instagram and LinkedIn and articles and everything else if they could leverage AI to do that as well in very creative ways.
Yeah, I agree. So, what was coming up for me as I was listening to is all of the people who I've talked to over the last couple of years, where I mentioned to them that they're content deficient, right? They don't have
Oh, so
enough
good.
content, right? So, what would maybe your advice, or let's take this into the angle of like, oh my gosh, the idea of creating content is like going to the dentist to get my teeth extracted. How would you inspire them to, or maybe there's an easier way that you're guiding your clients to make content?
Well, I inspire them. All they have to do is actually look at some of my older content and they'd be like, what is wrong with this guy? So, uh, as a kid, I was diagnosed with having one of the worst cases of learning disabilities that the doctor had ever seen. In fact, I'm sitting there. My mom, she was telling my mother this, and the doctor actually, and I still can't believe she said this, told my mom, "I'm surprised he can function at a regular school." Now, that's how bad it was. I have so many forms of dyslexia, except for seeing things backwards. That's the one thing I don't have. Well, but I didn't even know there were other forms of dyslexia. I thought there was just one. But apparently, I got a whole bunch. Word retrieval issues, and you name it. Now, you wouldn't know that now because over time, with repetition and consistency and over again, you say the same things over and over and over and over and over again, tends to, you know, now I'm getting tongue-tied, but it tends to, overcompensate for itself, right?
Yeah, it anchors in
So,
and it becomes part of the groove.
yeah. So anything you're going to start doing, you're going to suck in the beginning. I mean, babies don't just stand up and start running. They stand up and they fall and they fall and they fall and they fall. And every time they fall, they learn a little more and a little more and a little more and a little more. One of the core secrets to success, and I've had the massive opportunity of being surrounded by some brilliant people, including several billionaires, is imperfect, consistent action over and over and over again. But imperfect is the key. Imperfect and consistent. Richard Branson is one of my professional role models. And Richard Branson, I read his book back in college, and he also has a whole bunch of dyslexia and learning disabilities and whatnot. And he said, look, the reason why I'm a billionaire and other people aren't is because maybe I'm just dumb enough to keep standing up after being knocked down. I just keep getting up and getting up and getting up. And he was asked, what do you think about failure? Do you still fail? And he goes, yeah, I fail every day, but the difference is now it's public and everybody knows about it. But I still fail every single day. I just keep getting up. So you know what? The first time I did a podcast, I was so nervous. I almost couldn't sleep that night. I still remember, I was so sweaty. I was concerned that they were going to see the sweat stains through my shirt because I was so sweaty and so nervous. The first time I spoke on stage, I literally was vomiting before I got on stage. Like the first time I did anything, I was so uncomfortable and so scared. But I pursued through it, and now it becomes, I wasn't even 1% nervous before getting on the podcast with you. It was just, you do it enough and it just happens.
Yeah, it's that repetitive anchoring of what you know works, and then little refinements to keep growing the edge, to keep evolving the impact and the better mastery, I guess is the word I was looking for there.
But here's the
I
thing.
love that.
Here's the thing. It was optional for a long time to create content. AI is no longer making it optional anymore. AI is telling us, look, if you want to be relevant, if you want to grow your business, you're going to have to do it. Mm-hmm. So you do have a choice. If you want to work for someone, have a great living, and not have the stresses of entrepreneurship, and there's nothing wrong with being a team member. We all need team members that are great, awesome people. Then you don't have to create content. But if you want to own your business and capture market share and be successful and do well, content is number one. Conversation I had right before you, Melanie, a gentleman who runs actually I could tell you who he is, Jason Gennard, MMT. So Mastermind Talks, he runs a curated community for some of the top 7, 8, 9-figure entrepreneurs on the planet. And he point blank asked me, what's your focus now for 2026? I said, content, number one, and nothing's even close. Content, number one. That's what's going to drive buying behavior in 2026 in the foreseeable future.
Yeah. You know, I want to bring something else into our conversation because this time's going so quickly. There's so much we could cover, but I'm curious about content and building an expert-based business, and then really looking at how do you shift, because so many people, their content really relies on them, their thought leadership, their ability to generate the content, even if you're using AI, that it could kind of start to replicate you. But you talk a lot about making your expertise replicable instead of irreplaceable. How does that work in somebody's mind? That might be a great way to bring this home.
Sure. Okay. So there's a few things. By the way, it is really important that you have a personal brand and a business brand. You have to have both. Like you can't decide you're going to create content and hide behind your business brand. That doesn't work. You have to have both. And if we had more time, I could give you the data and the statistics to back up everything that I'm saying. There's a significant reason and purpose for having both. Number two, to create leverage in that content. If you think about my business, Predictable Profits, the hero of the story is our operating system, the Predictable Profits operating system. That's the hero of the story. It's a lot easier to create replicable, tongue twister, content when the hero of the story is the operating system. Another part of our expert pillar is the founder's trap. In the founder's trap, we can create more content around that. If the hero of the story is tied around our IP, and the vehicle for delivery is, could be the founder, it could be different team members, it could be whomever it is, that they don't make themselves the hero of the story, then it doesn't have to be dependent on you. I could have other members of my team talking with you, and that would be great because they're going to emphasize the IP. So again, it's like you have to be really deliberate with who's the hero of the story. So between my wife and I, we invested $250,000 with Tony Robbins, traveled the world with him. Tony made a colossal mistake. He named the company Tony Robbins. He made himself the hero of the story. And at one point when I was with him, he tried to scale out because he's like, I'm exhausted. I've already made several $100 million. I need to create leverage. Anytime he moved himself out, attendance went way down. People didn't want to attend if Tony Robbins wasn't there. He made himself the hero of the story instead of making his IP the hero of the story. Make the IP the hero of the story, and then you can pull yourself out.
I love that wisdom. And in a way, this is about you as the thought leader, as the content generator, as the solution provider. You have to start thinking in terms of your frameworks, not just how do you recreate a whole new wheel every time you work with a client. And I know that's what you help your people with, Charles. It's part of a little bit of what we do here. But this is a change in the paradigm of how a lot of people do business. And
Yeah,
we
you're right.
started this conversation today with AI, and I'm wondering, how does AI and really like establishing your framework or what you're known for, the operating system you call it, how can AI be a partner in that, or do we really need to keep that out of AI?
One of the big problems and issues that I see when people think about AI is they actually think about it as a technology and a software. And I think that's a big mistake. If you look at AI as your most intelligent employee, then it takes a much different approach, right? So if you were to ask me another question you need to create content, and if you had a member on your team that could help you create that content, like what would you do, and how could they help you? And that would be that approach, because you can have team members that can help you, especially with context and I don't want to go too deep in a rabbit hole, but creating projects and leveraging AI in the ways that you can. AI could turn around and suggest topic points for you. You can brainstorm back and forth and give it your voice and have it script part of it. But you're doing AI wrong if you turn around and say, write me an article on marketing, as an example. That's wrong. You're doing AI right if you go back and forth, you give it your unique topics and experiences and content, and go back and forth, unique stories, and then it can go ahead and it can draft it in your voice. That's when you're doing AI right. Because you wouldn't just tell an employee, hey, go write me an article on marketing, and then I'll go record it and publish it. No, like if you're actually the next level thought leader and you're capturing market share, it's because people want to hear your unique perspective and take on things.
Yeah.
Don't
I
lose
love
that part.
I love that you're bringing this partnership concept in with AI. And I'll just, for the record, say that I really resisted the emergence of AI when it first came out. I was like, no,
Yeah,
I'm not going to do it. And when I shifted my mindset to really see how the partnership could work, that's when AI became, as you called it, one of my team members, rather than feeling like it was going to take me out of my authenticity and my voice. It really just amplifies it now.
absolutely.
Yeah. So I got a couple of fun questions I'd like to dig in with you, but I think this is a really powerful moment to share how people could find out more about you and your work, Charles, and what would be the first step you'd want somebody to take to lean into the predictable profits that you can help them unlock in their business.
Sure. Well, they can visit predictableprofits.com. Again, that is predictableprofits.com. We have a bunch of resources. My book is there, as well as our community where they can access our community, and you'll see a tab there. But again, that's predictableprofits.com. You can also listen to our podcast, and you'll see Melanie on the podcast as well, the Beyond Seven Figures podcast. So that's another great resource where they can consume more information. But, those are just some of the areas I would encourage people just to consume the content. See if it resonates with you and it makes an impact and difference in your life. And if so, see what happens.
Love that. And you guys have a great LinkedIn profile. And for those of you that this is the year I'm going to really lean into LinkedIn, highly recommend you go connect with Charles over there as well.
Thank you.
Oh, you are welcome. So since we've talked a lot about expertise today, if somebody is not familiar with you, your work, they've never listened to your podcast, what is the number one thing you want them to walk away from their first experience of you? What's that main expertise? You're like, boom, that's what Charles does.
Well, that's a really good question. I'm the guy that helps founders and CEOs escape the founder's trap. And the founder's trap that's the situation that you're in when the business is dependent on you for leads. Everything comes in from word of mouth and referrals. You have to be the one to close every deal because just nobody can close like you, and you just have trouble scaling that. Operations depend on you. You're still involved in all the client delivery. You're the center of the org chart. You're in the founder's trap, and we help people escape it.
Nice. I love it. I always love hearing how people answer that question. And my friends, as you're listening in today, that's the whole point. You really need to be able to quickly drop in, what am I known for? What's the thing I want people to walk away from, whatever touch point they have? All right. I got a second question for you, and then we'll wrap up with this. I always like to take my guests back in time to a moment when they had to make a really bold decision, something that was maybe slightly terrifying. There was a lot of resistance, or just wow, I don't really know where this is going to go, but I know I have to do it. Do you know what that bold decision was for you that turned out excellent in the end?
Well, I'm going to go with the first thing that came to mind. And that was when I was in college. Everybody in my class was applying for jobs. And I started applying for jobs too. And then I said to myself, why am I doing this? I've always said I wanted to be a business owner. I've always been a business owner. And I'm like, nope. So I decided I was no longer going to apply to jobs. And I turned down any offer that was given to me. And from that moment, I said, I'm going to start my own business. And it took me a long time. And that was in 1999. And by 2001, I was already in over $1 million in debt. And because I only have one speed, Melanie. It's go big or go home. And when I decided to be an entrepreneur, I went all in. I will say that I did have a business nominated by Ernst & Young within 1 year of graduating. Nominated by Ernst & Young as being one of the nation's best seed stage companies. And then when I was 24 is when I created my first multi-million-dollar business. So it did turn out well. But we'll say there was a lot of sleepless nights. There was we can save this story for another time, I suppose, but the stress was so extreme that I did find myself 23 in the hospital. My organs were shutting down due to the stress. Doctors told me I was actually dying. So, yeah, I had the yin and the yang throughout that moment. But I learned a lot from that experience, and it helped me become who I am today. So I'm grateful for it now.
I'm so grateful that you shared that. I think oftentimes we see the successes and we don't always know the back end, the back story of how somebody got there and what they had to slog through to get to that other speed, which is the success that we want everybody to see about us. And just knowing that you can be massively in debt, which is so terrifying for so many people.
Yeah.
And you can come out the other side And it's not a failure remedy or, a recipe for failure, but it's a part of the journey of how you get to where you need to be. Now, sure, most of us would probably like to cut the stress part out. My guess is now you understand how to navigate business growth and systems and self-care that allows you to grow and take risks and make bold decisions. And you're going to navigate it a lot differently.
Yeah, and the thing is this what made me stress out back then. I don't think about it much now because it's like going to the gym. When you first start, you might put on some weight, but then eventually that weight gets easier, so you put on more and put on more and put on more. And life has that funny way of giving you challenges. Like the challenges that I'm going to face 20 years from now in business will be significantly bigger than the challenges that I face now, but I'm not prepared for them now. I have to go through the challenges now so I can handle the ones 20 years from now. And then I'll look back at the challenges I'm faced with now and be like, I can't even imagine I lost 1/10 of a minute of sleep over the challenges that I'm faced with today.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. I
Right?
know that one so well. There's so many, what are they? We call them parables, not parables. Anyway, little quotes that we could say about that. But the truth of the matter is, you will be able to navigate anything you decide to navigate. And what you don't know how to navigate, you hire a coach for, and you get yourself in the right community, because those communities will show up for you and support you in navigating what you don't know how to do yet. That's why coaches
You
have
are.
coaches, right?
You are absolutely, absolutely spot on. I'm
Wow.
That's been my whole life. When I was in high school, I was wrestling. I had a losing record in wrestling, so I didn't win a single match my freshman year. And my dad said to me, "Hey, if you can get a state championship by senior year, then I'll buy you a car." So I ended up seeking out the best coaches I could find, even trained with Dan Gable, who's the number one wrestler in the world, won the Olympics without ever getting a point scored against him. I went out to see him twice. And then by the time I graduated senior year, I had 3 state championships. And then every business that I ever started, I was like, who has gone down this road before that can help me avoid some of the pitfalls and the challenges and this and that to be able to support this journey so I can get there faster and cheaper in the long run than trying to do it on my own. So I never actually expected to be a coach myself. It was never my journey. It was never what I intended. It was just in 2010, somebody offered to pay me to help them grow their company. I kind of liked it, and I was halfway decent at it. And then I tried another one, I took another one, and then I'm like, well, I like it. We'll make that, we'll keep going with it. And that's what brought me where I am today.
Yeah. Wow. I love learning more about the story of how or what shaped Charles to become the version of you are today. Thank you for sharing it. And thank you for joining me today on Amplify Your Success. I love sharing inspiring stories, and you certainly are one of them, but you also have some very powerful tools. So friends, as you're listening in, make sure you go check out Charles's podcast. We will link up my episode with Charles in the show notes on his podcast, as well as his great resources and website. So, Charles, thank you so much for being here today.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in today, Amplifier. We're going to keep this conversation going, and I want to hear from you how you're going to amplify your authority and make a greater impact. Before you go, please take a minute to give our show and our guests some love over on your favorite podcasting platform. Subscribe, rate, and review. Leave your full name, and I'll spotlight you and your authority on social media.